Today I'm joined by Dr. Nicholas Gill, nominated by Andrew Keane. Nick is head of strength and conditioning of the All Blacks since 2008, associate professor in human performance at the University at Waikato. Most notable successes, 2 Rugby World Cups with the All Blacks, on the way to the third one, hopefully. Nick supported the New Zealand track cycling team pursuit towards the Rio Olympics and supporting New Zealand rowing over 2 Olympic cycles. And last but not least, Nick has recently published a book over nutrition and lifestyle. Welcome, Nick.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. And Nick, I heard you also grow the best avocados in the Southern Hemisphere.
Oh, absolutely. Big, fat, beautiful tasting New Zealand avocados.
That's great. Nick, when I spoke to Andrew Keane, he mentioned that the All Blacks had a terrible loss in 2007 and they revamped the whole system. Considering you started 2008, have you been part of that new system?
Obviously, yes, very much so. They got knocked out of the quarterfinal in the World Cup in 2007. And I was lucky enough to get appointed 2008. And we changed a bit. And we keep changing things, as you'd expect. So I've been involved this is my 12th year.
Okay, cool. And what brought you into strength and conditioning?
Well, I was a competitive athlete. Loved cycling and triathlon and loved rugby, played rugby. But it was, I suppose, I came to the realization that I wasn't going to make it to the Olympics or to a World Championships or anything like that. So I thought, well, what's the next best thing? And that's to be involved as a coach. So that's really what got me started when I realised I didn't have the athletic potential to maybe achieve as what I wanted to. So I just wanted to go to the Olympics, and so that's what got me into strength and conditioning.
Okay, and I saw you finished your education first, meaning also completion of the PhD before you moved into strength and conditioning. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, I finished my bachelor degree, and I didn't really feel like I knew enough. So I didn't feel I could go out and be a strength and conditioning coach or a physiologist because I really didn't feel like I'd had the knowledge, definitely didn't have any experience. So I carried on studying, did my PhD, and during that time got some experience coaching people. And so I was sort of at university for about 9 years, learning but also gaining experience coaching.
And you were assistant coach for the All Blacks in 2004, and then you moved on to become the head of strength and conditioning. How was that?
Yeah, so in 2004, I was involved as assistant S&C coach for the All Blacks. And I left. I was having a young family, and it was just a bit hard, too much time away and stuff. So, so then I came back and was in charge, and I haven't looked back.
Okay. In your life as an S&C coach, what was your darkest moment?
I suppose the dark moments for me is when an athlete is injured in one of my sessions. So, that's probably for any S&C coach. We're there to help athletes achieve, their potential, and when we are involved and then getting hurt, that's always my dark days are when I feel like I've missed something and created an issue for an athlete, because it's essentially not doing what I'm striving to do. So, I've had a few of those in my career, and they're always a dark, sad time, and you've sort of got to move on and learn from it and try to ensure it doesn't happen again.
How do you bounce back from these moments?
I think for me anyway, I review what's happened and whether I could have done anything differently, or if the athlete could have done anything differently, and take the learnings out of that experience, and hopefully just try to. I mean, you can't dwell too long. You've got another 30 odd athletes to work with, and so I'll lock myself away in my room for a couple of hours and beat myself up a bit, and then come out and I'll just move on, and you just have to get back into your role, which is about being positive and energized and supportive of the athlete.
Okay. What was your best moment as an S&C coach?
Oh, I just like being part of a group of men that are striving for success every day. And so, my best moments are when the team as a unit perform. And it's not always about winning; it's about performing for us. And I just love any time that we put a performance out on the park that makes us all proud to be part of. And so we have lots of those moments, and I can't really separate any moment in particular. Although it was pretty special last World Cup when we won the final. We had 6 or 7 guys. It was their last game for the All Blacks, and we won. And we won in style, and it was pretty emotional to I suppose not only win the World Cup, but do it with a group of men that had poured so much into the team and were leaving. So it's pretty hard to isolate one moment, but that was pretty special.
And to the best of my knowledge, that hasn't happened before, that a rugby team won back-to-back the World Cup, right?
No, I don't think a team has won back-to-back, and I don't think a team's won overseas either. So, normally for some reason the host team do pretty well, but we're the first to go back-to-back.
Oh, really cool. If you could travel back in time, 10, 15, maybe 20 years, what advice would you give a younger Nic?
Relax a little bit more. I suppose for me, I feel like I'm only just starting to, relax and enjoy what I do. And when I was younger, I was very highly strung and stressed about making sure everything was perfect. And when you realise that nothing's perfect, you have to sort of adapt and adjust to what happens on a day-to-day basis, and just take it in your stride. Then that's probably the biggest piece of advice I'd give my younger self, is just relax. Relax, be yourself, and enjoy every moment, because one day you won't be there doing that. So that would probably be it.
Oh, really cool. And then young aspiring S&C coaches, what advice would you give them?
Oh, know your athletes. Simple. Yeah, just get to know your athletes as people. Everyone's different. Every athlete's different. So whether it's not just about numbers and reps and sets. Every athlete has a partner, has a child, has some issues, has some anxieties and stresses, and understanding those, and trying to get to know the athlete so that they trust you and they believe in you and they come to you for help. And it's probably the most important thing is know your athlete. It's not about the bit of paper. It's not about the program. It's about the athlete.
And if you, for interns that want to go to the All Blacks or want to become All Blacks S&C coaches, what qualities would you like to see? We open up applications here. No, I'm just joking.
We don't have interns, but I mean, the unfortunate thing with strength and conditioning is it's probably the same as any job, really. But experience is very important. And as a young S&C coach, it's hard to get experience because people will say, "Well, we can't have you involved because you've got no experience." So, my advice to young S&C coaches to go and get to know people, meet people, find some mentors or some people that you can have a cup of coffee with. Learn from putting yourself in lots of different situations, whether that's observing sessions or talking to people about philosophies and watching things like this. But the most important thing when it comes to getting a job is that people know who you are. And so that doesn't happen by sending in a CV. Well, that's a beautiful colour and got some nice qualifications. People need to know of you and have bounced into you or bumped into you at some point in time because you've been proactive in making connections.
What is your coaching philosophy as a strength and conditioning coach, or as a coach in general?
I suppose for me, it's a matter of trying to, end of the day, my job's to help the athlete express themselves come game day. So, there's a fine balance between, physical work and getting stronger and fitter and faster and being recovered enough to be able to express yourself. So my philosophy is probably around balance. balance between working, playing, and recovery. So, what I mean by playing, and I mean by having fun. So, most athletes need to, have an enjoyment factor. Some athletes' enjoyment is about hitting certain times on a track, and other athletes it's about hitting certain numbers in the gym, and so that's where knowing your athlete becomes really, really important. But that's probably my philosophy is well planned, well structured programs to allow the athletes to express themselves and enjoy doing it.
Very cool. What are your core values?
I think honesty is important, trust is important, communication is vital. And being very organised and professional in how you deal with your athletes and your coaches. And doesn't mean you can't have fun and joke around and be an idiot at times, but they're probably the key things that help me do what I do.
Which person has influenced you most and why?
There's some deep questions here.
We want to get to know Nic Gill.
I suppose the people that influence me most are my athletes, to be fair. I think about people that I've met as S&C coaches or performance coaches, and there's some amazing people that I've rubbed shoulders with. I've been fortunate to meet a lot of people in great positions that have got amazing careers and are doing very, very well. But I think I learn the most from my athletes. Questions they ask me, questions I ask them, observations I make of them moving, dealing with the athletes and the coaches. You learn a lot from working with these guys day to day, especially in a situation like a World Cup where you're together for 2 months, every single day, living in a hotel. We're together all the time. So that's probably who I learn most from.
Yeah. And talking about athletes, sometimes as S&C coaches, we face that athletes have expectations. Sometimes these expectations and ideas are different from our ideas. So how do you influence change? How do you convince? How do you do that? How do you bring a point across?
Yeah, it's a really good question, because it is a problem I suppose that pops up all the time. Something that I used to struggle with was, athletes not necessarily buying into maybe where I was trying to take them. So now I sort of feel like I've been doing this for a while now with this group of men that I sort of feel like there's more of a collaboration with regards to where we're trying to go versus, me telling them. I've got my ideas, they trust me. And if they've got some ideas, we discuss them and make sure that there's some logic, some common sense. And we'll come up with the decision and the direction together. So it's not butting heads, it's not disagreeing, it's not them sneaking off to do it anyway. Let's discuss our ideas and our directions and where we're at. And this is where knowing your athlete's important, because if you get some good discussion going on and then they know that you're listening, then they'll come to you more often, and then all of a sudden you've got this collaboration that's really powerful. So doesn't mean they can do what they want. It just means that they get an opportunity to voice their ideas. I get my opportunity to voice my ideas, and then we end up coming up with a solution that we both are, I suppose, excited about. So that's probably the way that I deal with it.
And in a team of coaches and support staff, everyone wears his own hat and has his own ideas, priorities, looks through his own goggles. If disagreement comes up, how do you deal with that?
Again, just the same. You have to have robust and honest conversations, and everyone's got different ideas, and in our management team we've got some very, very, very strong personalities, and everyone's very, very experienced. Some of our coaches have been to 5 World Cups, and some of our support staff have been to 4. So there's some amazing experience and some smart minds. So it doesn't mean that someone that's new to the group can't sort of have their own ideas as well. But we basically have to leverage off experience and knowledge within the group. And so you sort of have to drop your ego at the door and and have open discussions that are honest, and if you have to debate and not argue, but if you have to debate and discuss, then we do that. And once you've come to the conclusion or an agreement, everyone commits to it. There's no second guessing. This is what we've decided. Let's do it. So that's probably how we do it.
And I guess most people know who the All Blacks are, and it seems like they are famous for the team is bigger than the individual, so it's decoupled from the athletes. And I also read that there's a no dickhead policy when it comes to people selecting athletes. How does that play out for the support staff? Is there also some code of conduct?
Yeah, there's no dickhead policy. It applies to the whole team for sure. I think you would have heard this phrase before, but you've got to have the right people in the right seats on the bus. So any team or any performance is about people, and so you have to have the right people, whether that's in your team of athletes or in your support staff and management team. If you're not the right person for the job, then you don't last long. You're gone. So it's all about people. It's not about anything else than the people on the bus.
Cool. How does a typical day in the life of an All Blacks S&C coach look like?
Oh, wow. Okay. A typical day for me is I'd get up and exercise for an hour. Then I would have a quick smoothie and get to the training field to set up. So I start training about 6 and get to the training field about 7:30. And then we'll be on the grass. I'll be on the grass with the team for sort of, by the time we set up and then break down training, I'll be there for 4 hours, 5 hours. Come home for a light lunch and a nap, and then I'm off to the gym. I'll be at the gym for about 3 hours with the team. So not all the players are there for 3 hours, but at the time I set up the gym and players come through, and then I pack up the gym. That'll take me through to about 5:30, and then we'll have a coaches meeting to discuss the next day. And then I'll do an hour or two's work, and then I'll be in bed. So pretty much, at the training field for 4 or 5 hours, and at the gym for 2 or 3 hours, and that's the day. And so then you sort of rinse and repeat, but do it again the next day. It's sort of a typical day. We obviously have some days off through a week, but yeah, three days out of 5 we are following that sort of routine.
And considering you're the head of strength and conditioning for the All Blacks, how many other S&C coaches are there? What's the structure like?
I've got a part-time assistant. So Kim Simpringham is my assistant at the moment, and he assembles with us when we travel. But when we're not away, he has another job. So it's really just me for 12 months a year. And then when we have a competition like this, I have an assistant.
And how do you distribute tasks? I mean, is everything in your control and the assistant carries it out, or you give responsibilities away?
I'm a bit of a control freak, so I make all the decisions, and I discuss everything with the coaches, and so I sort of oversee all that stuff. And Kim helps with coaching, so hands-on in the gym and on the field, and all our sports science, all our monitoring, so GPS and all our databasing and stuff is my assistant's responsibility. So he gets me the information, and then I'll discuss plenty with him, and him and I'll chew the fat around lots of things, and then normally myself and the head coach make the decisions.
Okay. How do you design a training program?
Yeah, good question. I suppose I have a funny process of every year trying to design it differently and do it better. And I end up every year coming back to a very similar method. But basically, I look at my positional groups within the team, and I'll design a strength and power speed program based on the key movements I think that positional group needs. I'll look at my sets and reps and volume structure based on travel and who we're playing, and time together and time of the year, time of the season. and then I'll look at individuals within that to adjust, to include specific injury prevention for the individual, but also for the position, specific rehab, specific movement preparation and recovery and things like that. And then over top of all that, we'll throw our conditioning and our running load, which is based on GPS and history. And so, we have 31 players here at the moment. Each of them has their own strength and power program, but each of them also has different sort of metrics that we're trying to hit within the field session. So running fast and enough volume of high intensity running, enough time on feet or total distance. So we just constantly try to use that information to tweak individuals' plans. And then after all that's done, and we've got a bit of paper, it comes down to daily adjustments, and how you're feeling today. This is what we had planned, but what are we actually going to do? And so the daily adjustments is probably the thing that I put most emphasis on. A bit of paper is a bit of paper. Programs just, anyone can write a reasonable program on paper, but it's how it's implemented that's important. And how you consider what's happening with the athlete and the rest of the program that needs to be adjusted. So, I'll have daily conversations with the athletes to make changes and tweaks based on what I'm seeing and how they're feeling.
Okay. I listened to an All Black podcast where you were speaking, and there was one thing that piqued my interest, where you said you found if you're trying too hard to put on muscle mass through hypertrophy training, that can create injuries. Can you elaborate on that?
I don't remember saying that, but no, hypertrophy training is very hard, isn't it? Traditional hypertrophy training of high volume, low load, short rests is pretty tough. So there's a huge metabolic cost, a huge central nervous system cost, huge fatigue. And so if you were then to go sprinting the next day, having done a hypertrophy program in your legs, you're very likely to hurt yourself, more so than if you did another form of training that didn't create the same stress in the muscle. So that's probably what I was getting at, is hypertrophy training through the legs can create such fatigue that you're going to end up hurting something. But I think also just the fact that you've got a lot of fatigue in our sport, it's collision based, and if you are fatigued going into a collision, so you're going into a collision at say 80% effort, you're likely to come off second best, and if you come off second best, the risk of injury is greater. So if we're talking injury, can be based through running or typically collision. So we don't want tired athletes trying to smash each other, because you end up coming off second best and getting hurt.
And digging a little bit deeper into that. So, for example, my athletes also, they are pretty strong and well built, but hypertrophy training is never the primary goal. So they get the hypertrophy through different means of training. How is it for you guys? I mean, of course, your guys are also pretty strong and massive in a way. Do you have dedicated hypertrophy periods, or is the hypertrophy a side effect of the max strength, for example?
Yeah, I think that's how, as when you're dealing with them needing to perform every week, you can't really put too much emphasis on hypertrophy, in my opinion. And so we basically get gains in muscle through our strength program, and little doses of hypertrophy. So we might have one exercise. If we've got trying to put some lean mass on someone, then it's a long process. It's not something you try and smash out in a couple of weeks. It's a long process. And typically we try and get stronger, and we'll try to maybe have an exercise or two that is more hypertrophy based through our reps and rest periods. And I suppose the other reason I'm not a big fan of hypertrophy phases of programming in our sport, and bearing in mind this, because I'm with the All Blacks and we play, basically we're only together when we play, so we don't have an off season or a pre-season. But hypertrophy basically builds slow muscle, so we're not after slow twitch, weak muscle, we're after strong, fast twitch muscle. So, we're very much a strength orientated program versus a hypertrophy orientated program.
I think we are S&C brothers from another mother in the way of philosophy.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
You recently published a book, and the theme of the book is health and fitness, and you want every reader to become his own health guru. What was your motivation to write that book? I guess people would expect you to write an S&C book, right?
I just get pissed off with how little people know about how to be healthy, and I get far more joy out of helping someone change their life through being healthy than I do out of helping an athlete jump higher. You know, it's when people come and see me and I help them and they come back and say, oh, I'm off my cholesterol medication and my blood pressure's gone down and I've lost 15 kilos and I'm no longer pre-diabetic, and like that's so much more satisfying than helping an athlete jump a little bit higher. You know, potentially you're helping people live longer. And I just got a little bit frustrated about how little people know about basic health, you know, exercise and nutrition. And so I just tried to get my ideas on paper so that, you know, maybe I can help a few more people be healthier and live longer.
Really cool. Do you want to nominate someone to be interviewed?
Oh, yeah, I do. Mark Harvey, he's now with the New Zealand Breakers. Mark Harvey's a good friend of mine, and he's had an interesting career the last 4 or 5 years. He's moved from New Zealand Sevens S&C coach to the New Zealand Warriors, which is a rugby league team, to now a basketball team. So he's moved across 3 sports in the last sort of 2 years. But he'd be fantastic to interview.
Really good. Where can people find you?
Well, I suppose the easiest place to find me is my website, www.nicgill.com, NICGILL.com. Drop me an email there, or on Instagram. I'm on Instagram as well, so track me down on Instagram, Nic Gill Health and Performance.
Awesome, Nic. Thanks for being generous with your time. Thanks for sticking to it despite all the technical glitches we had leading up to this interview.
No problem, mate.
Thanks a lot, Nic. And I definitely keep my fingers crossed for the All Blacks in this World Cup. My son was so excited when I said I speak to you. He put on his All Black shirt that he got from Andrew Keane.
Oh, good on him. That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Hey, we've got supporters all around the world. It's pretty special.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks for your time, Nic.
Okay, mate. Thank you.